Next item, please.
Item number 5, rezoning, planned master development, Midwest Transit, DEV 2013-114, quasi-judicial hearing.
Mr. Mozak.
Thank you. Dennis Mrozek, planner with the City of Daytona Beach. The next item tonight is a request to rezone 228.25 acres of land generally located west of Tomoka Farms Road and north of West International Speedway Boulevard from AG Agriculture to PMD Plan Master Development for construction of a mixed-use development. Again, we have a location map up here for you. It gives you a good idea where Tomoka Farms Road, running pretty much north-south, ISB located down here on the southern portion of the map. And also the Tomoka River over here on the west side of the property. The existing land use of the property is level 1 residential primarily, but there's also includes conservation, buffer area, passive park, interchange, commercial, and retail. Last month, we did have a proposal come through the planning board to amend the land use of the property. I wanted to be able to show you a comparison of what is currently and what's being proposed. You see on the left-hand side is what's existing. You see on the right-hand side is what's being proposed. A large portion of the property is going to be, there is an application to amend it to a mixed-use land use, keeping in place the conservation area and the buffer area passive park. As far as the proposed zoning, the entire area is already zoned AG agriculture, which includes the area, the buffer area and the passive park and the conservation area. This area will be rezoned to the PMD. The land use really will control the development of the property on the conservation area and the buffer area, with no activity occurring on those areas. They're protected through the comprehensive plan. Development will only occur on the area which is currently the level 1 land use, but all of it will be considered part of the PMD. As far as the Plan Master Development, it is intended for a unique district. It is also intended for large areas. This is 228 acres. This is a tool for long-range planning development, and it allows for phased sequences of development. Again, there is that pending comprehensive plan amendment to amend the property to mixed use. The proposed uses that are included within this PMD rezoning were identified in their land use text amendment that they have with their comprehensive plan that's going to be going forward to the City Commission for approval. I did another overview for you, and we'd be able to plop down exactly where the site is located. You can see that the lighter area on the map is the area that's potential for development. The grayed out area are parts of the area that are the conservation and the buffer area, so there'll be no development occurring in that area. This is also available for you in your package, and it just shows a general layout of the proposed plan. This plan does have flexibility of uses and locations based on market conditions. As far as the LDC waivers, I do have uses on here. As I was mentioning, the site is currently zoned agriculture, which is very limited in the types of uses that are permitted there. They're just not anticipated in the ag zoning. So this actually rezoning to a PMD, being compatible with the proposed land use change, makes all of the uses being proposed compatible. They're asking for a waiver from the requirement for a traffic impact analysis. Traffic impact analysis is generally required with a rezoning. The applicant has requested a waiver from this requirement. They'll be deferring submittal of a TIA until site plans are actually provided for the development. That does give them a little bit better idea exactly what it is that's being proposed, and it makes perhaps for a more accurate traffic impact analysis, but I can have the applicant speak a little bit more on that. They're also requesting an increase in the number of signs, up to 5. based on the location and proximity to 95. The minimum landscape yards along the scenic thoroughfares, one of the things that they're requesting is to have the opportunity to reduce portions of the scenic setbacks along the Tomoka Farms Road and ISB. What will mean is if they are reducing any area, they're going to have to make up for that in an area in another part of that setback. So they'll be able to undulate through that area. As long as they end up with the same amount of material and the same amount of area, they were able to modify that required, I believe it's a 40 or a 50-foot width along Tomoka Farms Road. And then the design standards. One thing I did want to point out, and something that we had talked about as staff, Tomoka Farms Road is not a major city thoroughfare. Design standards in the Land Development Code are required for all properties that do front major city thoroughfares. Again, Tomoka Farms Road is not a major city thoroughfare, although ISB is. We've requested, based on the nature of the request, that the applicant follow design standards in the Land Development Code for all of Tomoka Farms Road. We've had many discussions on that. The applicant has come back and they've agreed to have the design standards for all of ISB and for the first 500 feet of Tomoka Farms Road as you go up Tomoka Farms Road from ISB. Also, they're going to be limiting the type of inferior type of material that may be possible further up. So the first 1,000 feet is kind of restricted on the material that they can use, and that's all available for you also in your report. So as far as the recommendation, staff does recommend approval to rezone the 228.25 acres of land generally located west of Tomoka Farms Road and north of West International Speedway Boulevard from AG to PMD, and to enter into a PMD agreement establishing development standards for the PMD. The item will be scheduled to be heard by the City Commission at 2 upcoming hearings. One will be public, pending the processing of the concurrent comprehensive plan amendment. So we don't have those dates yet when they'll go to the City Commission. That'll be determined when we receive the land use amendment back from its processing. An affirmative vote of 6 by the Planning Board members shall be required to recommend approval of this item to the City Commission. And that does conclude staff's presentation.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Board, any questions for staff? Go ahead.
Yes, according to our minutes last month, that we passed last month, it was submitted for 158.3 acres, and yet we're saying here 228.25, which obviously is a 70 acres difference. Is that going to remain as agriculture, or are you now saying, no, I want to change what I did last month and make it all 220?
Well, the zoning is going to sit on top of the land use. The land use will remain the same. It'll remain conservative, or conservation, and it'll remain buffer area passive park. The zoning will sit on top of it. Essentially, though, because of the land use, there is no development that can occur in that area of the property.
So when it was brought forward last month, it was just for the 158.
It was just for the 158. They just wanted to change that land use associated with
A little confused when I
the
said
development area.
I just have to ask, a 22-acre education site for close to 42,000 students? I mean, that's 2/3 of the school district. I was just curious.
And those are maximum potentials that were possible based on those types of uses. I can have Rob explain it a little bit. The applicant will explain it, but
I just had to ask.
it is a very good question, and he can do a good job of explaining it. But those are maximum potentials if it was that one use.
I just had to ask,
Yeah.
because 42,000, even a community college.
It shocked me the first time I saw it.
It's a virtual school,
Yes.
right, is 42,000 computers.
Yeah. Are we good? Yep.
I'm just curious.
Okay.
Any other questions for Mr.
All
Mozak?
right, just an education site, do you have something in mind? All right, that's
Absolutely
it.
not. So
Okay.
Let me try to explain that to you. I just want to make sure you guys are done with this. Okay.
Oh,
They're ready.
I don't want to change directions too many times. Again, Rob Merrill for the record with Cobb Cole Law Firm, here representing the applicant, 149 South Ridgewood, Midwest Transit, and Mike Witters, who's the owner of the company. I'm going to jump around and start by trying to answer your question, Pat. This is a project that's, as Dennis said, is a master planning exercise. This is not a project-based zoning application. It's much like what was done, and I know you weren't on the board, but when we came through last year with Halifax Hospital's property across from the hospital, we did a very similar type of thing. It's a planned master development rezoning process that essentially brings forward a very generalized, almost like a future land use map type of plan associated with the zoning. And so the idea is there's a mixture of uses, much like on Halifax's property, that ranges from, in this case, multifamily residential, office, commercial, institutional, even to some light, cleaner industrial type uses, which is what you see as you go further north on Tomoka Farms Road anyway. So there may be a transition, as you go north to that more intense type use. The school use that's in there is there because that's one of the possibilities. Could there be one that size? Only if that's the only thing on the whole property. So each of those maximums in that matrix, much like the matrix that we used on Halifax's a PMD, is intended to set up almost a DRI type matrix scenario where you look at the maximums of each, which is never going to happen, but you can take a portion of that and then it translates into either transportation impacts or utility impacts.
Okay.
And those are the measures of each of the types of uses that create a ceiling for each of them, and the mixture of them. Sometimes, for instance, multifamily creates a ceiling that's based on, maybe based on utilities, whereas another type use might be based on trips because there are more trips generated. So I hope that didn't make it confusing, but going back to sort of the beginning of what I wanted to say, this really is a planning exercise. It's not a project that I'm bringing to you any more than the hospitals was. The good news about that is, this particular property owner has held this property for quite some time through the downtime, and now he's starting to get activity. People asking him about buying pieces of this property. Instead of selling off chunks and telling the person to go off and get a site plan approved or get their zoning done independently, he decided to step back and before he started signing contracts and agreeing to sell pieces of the land, master plan it and bring it to you guys in a way that when the pieces start to come together in the jigsaw puzzle, they can fit together in a way that this PUD dictates how it's done. And so I think I think this planning board in the past, in several occasions, the Speedways property, both at the track and One Daytona, were done that way. Embry-Riddle's campus, we came through last year with a PMD that did the same thing. We master planned the whole campus. So those are examples of the type of master planning this vehicle has been used in the past couple years to bring forward. So as you might imagine, since we were involved in those, when this gentleman came to us and said, what can I do to master plans? So we've just done that. And so he thought that was a great idea, and I think it is too. And I think your staff agrees with that, as evidenced by their presentation and the report that they've given you. I'll mention to you, Pat, because you asked the question at the future land use amendment process, and it relates to what Larry asked, what we were doing to protect the threat of the Tomoka River that runs on the west side of this property. The first thing we did was what we did at the last meeting last month. We didn't change the land use designation or didn't request to have that changed in any way. That provides, I think, a very strong protection along that area. And I'll tell you that the Plan Master Development Plan that you see does the same thing. It mirrors that, and it can't supersede it. By law, the land use map dictates what you can do from a zoning standpoint. The other thing is the repair and habitat protection zone that the Water Management District implemented for the outstanding Florida water there also provides a layer of protection. So there are a lot of layers of protection both at the city level, comp planning and zoning, and at the Water Management District level to answer your question you raised last time. And the reason for the acreage difference is, Larry, we just didn't even want to touch that last time. So this encompasses his entire ownership, including the part that wasn't changed from a land use standpoint. I'll also mention, like I did last time I talked to you about mixed-use development, that, this is the wave of the future. This is something that I think when we talked about smart growth this past 7, 8, 10 years, we've been pointing at as a way of putting uses that we used to, in what we call a Euclidean zoning standpoint, separate in the same area, so that someone might be able to ride their bicycle to work or go to do a small shopping errand without having to get in their car. And that's exactly what this kind of thing's intending to promote. And so there's a lot of opportunities for pedestrian and internal trip capture, our transportation planners like to call it. And as Dennis mentioned, in terms of compliance with your code and comprehensive plan consistency, we're going through an amendment process for the future land use that you guys already approved unanimously last month. So once that's done, this is along the lines of that same template. Dennis went through a few different things in terms of the code compliance, and if you have particular questions about those, I'm happy to talk about them with you. He gave you such a level of detail, I hate to try to go any further without you guys asking me a question about it. So with that, I'll stand here until you're done asking questions.
So we're done.
I just have one other question, and that was the waiver on the design standards. And I'm looking at, I think Dennis said 500 feet from ISB, and I was thinking that's going to be the front piece of retail commercial, but it would also cover that second piece of retail commercial that shows 1360 linear feet.
Well,
And I understand that it's not that kind of a roadway. I'm just thinking about that entry part.
yeah, in my answer, we've, again, and I usually say this at the beginning of my presentation, but we've gone through a lot of back and forth with Dennis and his staff about a lot of things, including that. And I'm not here to tell you that you shouldn't include Tomoka Farms Road in the design standards requirements, but the fact is, it's not. It's not one of the roads. And so we said, okay, maybe ISB is the road that you focused on. So we said, well, let's go a ways up so things that you can easily see from ISB will comply with those. And they're stringent. I mean, I don't know whether you've gone through this with any of the schools, but these standards are difficult to meet. They're expensive. I think it's a good idea. I think that the product that we've seen come out of those standards is good. It looks good, especially in a place that's very conspicuous, like at the Volusia Mall with those restaurants. But as you go further up Tomoka Farms Road, I don't think that's the case. But if legislatively the planning board and the city commission decide they want to run up that road, I guess we need to debate that fully, because there are a lot of things up there that I think aren't the type of things you want to impose those standards on. So I hope that answered your question. I will mention, though, that as Dennis said, we did look at some of the materials that architecturally pleasing, like the metal tilt-up stuff, and we said that won't be at least 1,000 feet north of ISB, so you really can't see it. So that's where we ended up on that.
Thank you.
Okay. Any others?
Yeah, I tend to agree with Pat on that. Since we don't know what's going on in those 5 parcels, how can we say we don't want to have proper design standards? I mean, if we knew, then that might be something else, but none of us here.
The good news, Larry, to be clear, and I wasn't clear in answering Pat's question, the design standards that apply to most roads in Daytona Beach apply on Tomoka Farms Road.
Yeah.
The very stringent ones that you apply in a certain few roads, like ISB, don't apply there. But we volunteered 500 feet and the 1,000 for a part to have some of that apply. So I think what we're doing here is telling you we're doing more than what's required. If you guys, I'm not saying that, I'm not a design expert, but if you decide that Tomoka Farms Road is one of those roads, there's a lot of other roads too that it doesn't apply to that are much more conspicuous than Tomoka Farms Road from the viewing traveling public.
That's true. But
So it would open a lot of doors that you guys probably need to open and think about if you're going to go down Tomoka Farms.
Another time.
Yeah, another time. There'll be a lot of workshops on that, I would think.
On Tomoka Farms Road, though, you're saying you want to treat it like an interstate because you want 5 signs 85 feet tall on that, like an interstate. So what can't we say about design standards the same way?
Well, I mean,
I'm just showing as a comparison. I'm not in favor of the signs under this master agreement. As it comes forward with each property as they come up, hey, we'll address them at that time. But to give a carte blanche at this time, I think is ridiculous.
Part of and I'm glad you asked that question because Dennis talked about it, but I want to elaborate a little bit. Part of the idea with the signs and the visibility from the interstate is, I think those are the type of users you're going to get on some of these properties, number one. Number two, to the extent those properties are within the distance that allows those signs anyway, we're being penalized by having 200 acres here. The guy just happens to have 200 acres. So he's saying, well, if I divided it up, I could easily divide it into 5, but I probably could divide it into 25. But he's restricting it in that sense to 5 in this master planning exercise. So nobody can come in if it is divided into 25 parcels and ask for 25 signs, which you could do under the code.
Right.
You follow me? So
But there still could be restrictions depending upon what
There-
it is, the signs.
Well,
I understand why.
the half mile is the restriction that's in the code. So that's what, we're going beyond that and saying, but only 5.
Tell me about the reduced buffering that you're wanting a catch-all in
I
there.
think you're-
I understand that's good for you, but sometimes it's.
Another good question. As a matter of fact, I can tell you that the proposal that's before you is, Mr. Momberger, our design guy's here, but it's almost identical to what you would be proposing in the Embry-Riddle Tech Park here very soon. And the idea is that you don't have a wall that you can't see through, especially if you want to see what's behind it. You have the ability to cluster, and that's what we're talking about. And there are some of the people that are talking to my client now who don't need visibility, and some that do. For instance, you just saw the previous application; they care less about visibility. So we're going to put a wall of green straight across. Parker just told you it's going to be a sea of green, not clusters of green. But to the extent that that it's kind of like we deal with sometimes with environmental buffers, we can waiver as long as the average meets what's necessary, because sometimes the characteristics of the system that you're protecting are different as you go down the road. And I think the same thing applies to landscaping along a roadway. That's the idea.
Yeah, I'm not against it. I don't want you to think that that's the case.
Okay, I did want to explain it. I'm glad you asked.
And the master that you're bringing forward that I am concerned about and think we should be concerned about.
All good questions.
Any other questions of the applicant? All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Public, anyone wishing to speak in favor, other than the applicant? Anyone wishing to speak against? Board? Discussion time.
I was just curious from the staff, and maybe Mr. Walton can, you're okay with the signs, with 5 85-foot pole signs, just carte blanche?
Well, they can't, they have the right to ask that, and
I know,
with that
but-
waiver, they would be acceptable. It's,
Well, I guess if we knew what was going in, that might make a difference. They may or may not want that.
But
And
you're
again, this gives
recommending
them-
it, yeah?
This does give them the option, though, with that, too. It doesn't have to be an 85-foot. That just concerns me, and a little bit of design standards, but other than that, I'm for it.
Board?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I do find, though, in many cases, and when they try to make a sign that's got a whole bunch of names on it, like they are allowed to do, that's actually, I don't think they're very good. I don't think they're very effective, and I don't think they're very attractive.
Oh, I think each partial would be allowed to have a sign. No, I'm
Yeah,
not saying
so
that at all.
So
I
I'm
guess
comfortable.
I'm just objecting
Yes.
to seeing 5 85-foot signs going down there.
It was,
4,000, I think, and something feet.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
a mile.
That's a lot of these.
pretty close to a mile. Yeah.
I've got a question for the staff's recommendation is to change it to the P and D, correct? Is that right? It's not, is the staff's recommendation, it's not saying to consider all the waivers?
no,
Or
it would be
consider
with,
all the
it would
waivers?
be as submitted with the waivers.
With the
Including
waivers. Do you have another question?
Make a motion we approve rezoning plan master development Midwest Transient Development 2013-114.
Second. It's been motion and second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Thank you again.
All right, sir. Secretary, call our next item, please. Ms. White.
Certainly. Item number 6, preliminary plat, Williamson Business Park, DEV 2013-128, quasi judicial hearing.
Mr. Mosaic.
Thank you. Dennis Mrozek, planner with the City of Daytona Beach. The next item is a request by Parker Minchenberg on behalf of Jeff Robbins with Consolidated Tomoka Land Company to approve a preliminary plat for 9.85 acres of land located at 1160 North Williamson Boulevard to subdivide the existing development into 4 lots. I have a general location map for you. You see this is west of Williamson, just south of Mason Avenue and the Mason Extension. The development is half already completed, built out, and the remaining buildings are actually under construction right now. It's a simple 4-lot plat, each building having its own separate lot. City's TRT did review the proposed plat and has found it acceptable. And as far as the recommendation, staff is recommending approval of the preliminary plat request with the item tentatively scheduled to be heard by the City Commission on April 2nd, 2014. A majority vote of the Planning Board members present and voting are required to recommend approval to the City Commission. And that concludes staff's presentation.
Sir,
Thank you.
any questions for staff? Thank you. No questions. All right. Mr. Mitchell.
Good evening again. For the record, Parker Minchenberg, 1729 Ridgewood Avenue. This is a project Consolidated Tomoka developed 2 existing, Building 1 and 2, been there for a number of years. We recently got site plan approval for Buildings 3 and 4, and they want to have the ability to sell a building, fee simple, so we're before you with a plat to do that, and happy to answer any questions that I can.
Any questions?
No, I don't have any questions, just a comment. It just makes perfect sense.
Yes, it does.
Because before, you couldn't sell one building. You had to sell the whole thing, so
That's
it's just a common sense
Mm-hmm.
thing.
Smart move. Thank you. Board, we entertain a motion.
Anybody against it? Or for?
For or against? I thought they all left.
Really worried about John Nicholson.
Me too.
Yeah,
Do a well-being
Been
kit.
gone a long
count.
time.
been gone too long. There's none for or against. At this time, discussion?
Who's gonna make a motion?
Go ahead.
Make a motion that we approve preliminary plat Williamson Business Park Development 2013-128.
Second.
It's been motion and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
I know I'm already asking too much for a new person.
No, you're not.
I'm just gonna,
No, you're not.
still.
Item number 7, special use permit, Our Lady of Lourdes, DEV 2013-131, quasi judicial hearing.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Dennis Mrozek, planner with the City of Daytona Beach. One of my favorite projects, year after year, now every 2 years. This is a request by Joe Hopkins on behalf of Our Lady of Lourdes, located at 201 University Boulevard, for a special use permit to operate a carnival or Italian festival on the church grounds from Thursday, May 1st to Sunday, May 4th in 2014, and from Thursday, April 16th to Sunday, April 19th in 2015, so the following year. I will pull up the location for you. This is on University Boulevard, east of the Halifax Avenue. The land use is schools and church. It's remained that for quite a while, as has the current zoning of R1A single family. The request is required to meet certain requirements of the Land Development Code, in this case for special use review criteria. Few of them being consistent with the comprehensive plan, not detrimental to adjacent properties and neighborhoods, which is part of a condition. Parking and access is addressed, and a 50-foot buffer provided for residents to the east, and it is sponsored by a semi-public entity, which is the church. The item also has to meet the carnival review criteria, which is a requirement. In this case, the off-street parking provided contiguous to the event, 10-day max for the event. Rides and activities not in close proximity to adjoining residences, and limitations on operating hours. I want to pull up a location. This is provided. This is in your package, and this is something that they use for setting up the rides and locations of the festivities. You can see it takes up a good portion of the church site, but it's been successful every year, and I think it's getting more and more successful. I think the conditions that are being placed on here are really addressing a lot of the additional needs that the community was asking. Some of the extra conditions that we have placed on, these were city-included conditions. Portable toilets are being provided, no overnight camping or sleeping on a church site, music not to exceed 70 decibels. Parking attendants must be high school age or older, under 18 must be supervised by church staff. It's coordinated with the police department, and they do have a walkthrough inspection from the fire department. These are conditions that were put in place 2 years ago. Vehicles parked in that 50-foot buffer to the east are not permitted to have their engines running during festivity non-operational hours. This was important for some of the residents in that area. There's been a contact name and cell phone number provided, and that's required for the neighborhood liaison. In case there's any issues or concerns that come up, they can have a contact person. And also a requirement that city stormwater inspection before the event to verify any illegal stormwater use and require any cleanup that might be associated with that. The recommendation, again, is for the approval of the special use permit request with conditions permitting the operation of a carnival on the church grounds from Thursday, May 1st to Sunday, May 4th in 2014, and from Thursday, April 16th to Sunday, April 19th in 2015. A majority vote of the planning board members present and voting is required to recommend approval to the City Commission, and the application request is tentatively scheduled to be heard at the April 2nd City Commission meeting for a single reading. And that concludes staff's presentation.
Any questions for staff?
Actually, it must be nice to just keep this one and just change the dates.
This was one of the easier ones. I've got a few that are difficult, and this was one of the easier ones. Although I've got no calls on this one. Usually I get calls, so it was interesting.
Yeah.
Well, I think 2 years ago it worked well then.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Hopkins.
Good evening. My name is Joe Hopkins. I'm with the Performance Group at 100 Marina Point Drive here in Daytona. I've had the pleasure of representing Our Lady of Lourdes through some good times and bad, and I can assure you that these are good times because we've notified in excess of 128 people by certified mail. And not to discount these two folks in the audience, but we have successfully run this carnival and appeased the neighborhood, which had expressed some concerns for some of the new board members. It was it got a little contested at times, and we drafted that list of conditions over the last couple of years, and they've been attached to the special use permit for each following year. And this seems to keep everybody keep good order with the program. It's I think it's good for the carnival, it's good for the neighborhood, and it seems to be getting good results. Fantastic. So I would, I think Dennis did a good job explaining this. It's been before some of you before, but if there's any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them.
Any questions for?
No, just a statement.
Okay.
My question was going to be, did you notify the public? And I am amazed because over the years, we've had some individuals in here with questions about it. So it seems as if the list that you narrowed down of things to be done has worked. and I wish you all the best of luck.
Correct. The certified public notice is a 500-foot radius, and it includes the 2 condominiums on the riverfront. We notify their associations. We don't notify each of the individuals. So, but still, there's another 126 people within that radius that receive certified notices. So, a lot of people are aware of what we're doing, and I'm glad to see that we made them happy.
Fantastic.
The neighbors really like the fact there's someone they know they can call and they've got a number if they've got a problem, and they try and nip everything in the bud if that's the case, and that's good that you did.
Correct. Thank you.
Very good. Anyone, thank you, sir. From the audience wish to speak against? Board, discussion?
I just had a comment. I think it's wonderful that our churches reach out and do so much for our community. And I think this is, again, as a pastor, I know we do a lot for the community. So I applaud you, and again, I wish you the best for us.
Good. Go ahead.
Okay, move approval of special use permit DEV 2013-131, Our Lady of Lourdes Italian Festival.
Second.
Second.
There's been motion and second. Who done that? I had 2 seconds?
Oh, it doesn't matter.
Oh, okay. It's been motion and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Fantastic. Have a great carnival.
See you next year.
No, it'll be 2 years.
2 years. 2 years.
That's right.
All right, other business. Downtown Blue Road.
Yes. The downtown Belleau Road did not meet on the 7th of February. There was not enough information for the agenda, but there was a special meeting held on February 18th. The meeting began at 12:07. There was only one item on the agenda, DEV 2014-012, a site plan for News Journal Center Scene Shop, 221 North Beach Street, and they were to add 5,636 square feet to the Performing Arts Center. This was to, the scene shop was so that they could make their scenery right there on the spot, right there at the building, at the facility. It was approved unanimously, and the meeting was adjourned at 12:23.
That's great. That's great. Midtown.
Okay, meeting for Midtown Redevelopment Area Board was canceled, and next meeting is next month.
Oh, okay.
Easy one.
We don't have a representative for Main Street yet? Or Mr. Hurt?
Yes, we do.
Yes, I was there at the meeting. The first item was an item that was continued. The second item, they only had 2 on the agenda, and that was, there was a bar, I think it's on the corner of Oleander and Sea Breeze that is opening up. And then they had a bunch of suggestions for Bike Week for some noise control, which were pretty much voted down for the suggestions that they had. And that being my first meeting, I might get into this, that was my last meeting. I resigned, but I resigned because the first item that came up, have a very small part in this property. And there's going to be a lot of stuff coming up on this property. It's the boardwalk property beside the Hilton, and I have a little ownership in it. And there were 2 people besides me that had to abstain from voting, so that made 3 people that couldn't. And if the 4th person, who is the architect guy, if he had been there as the substitute, that would have been 4 people that would have had to abstain from anything voted on the boardwalk project. So I don't want to hamstring the board because that could be possibly 4 people. So I would like to get another volunteer from here to where they could evaluate whatever's coming forth with the boardwalk project and vote it up or down, but at least have a voice and vote up and down instead of being silenced by having to abstain. Got any volunteers?
I would be happy to do that.
Perfect.
All right.
We'll vote for you after a while.
All right.
Unless anybody else wants to, then we'd have.
Mr. Chairman, I think this set a record for people who have been in a...
I
solved it.
I'm a one-done guy.
One and done.
No, but it was, there's not that many people on the board, and you get 4 possibilities.
No, that makes
And
no
that
sense.
boardwalk project is going to have a bunch of stuff moving forward, so it has to be somebody, I think, on the board that can have a voice.
Yeah.
And vote it up or down, whatever that they see, whatever their opinion is.
Right. That makes sense.
Hey,
Certainly don't want to
so
hamper
that was
their
that.
efforts.
And then so the vote wouldn't even be a representative, would represent what the board's opinion was, because it would only be 4 instead of the whole board. So that was my reason.
All right. I say that was a good one.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyone in the public? Comments? Well, beginning to miss the old guy.
I was about to say, we might need to check on it.
Staff?
Yeah, before we get into the election of officers, which we postponed last time, I was at the TPO meeting this week, and one of the consultants for both, I think, the TPO and DOT is going to be starting some public involvement. They're going to have some questionnaires. They're trying to get input, particularly relative to Sunrail, things like that, that they're going to be looking for people to give them feedback on. So as I get those electronic links or hard copies of those out, I will send those out to you, and it may happen before your next meeting. That's why I'm bringing it up now, just to let you know and get it to you as soon as I hear from it. I think they're going to give plenty of time to do that, so I'll announce it next time if it happens beforehand, but you may be getting that from us before your next package even. And I guess the other thing I probably should mention is that we have a draft from Clarion on our land development code. We're kind of going through that now. There were a lot of things missing, and hopefully we're going to have that soon, where we'll distribute that to you. That hopefully will happen before your next meeting as well. We're going to give you plenty of time to review it, because it's not light reading.
No, it is not.
But also a warning on that, because that hopefully will come before the next meeting, but we'll see. And then the only
Well,
other-
we've been looking forward to that.
I know.
Anticipation.
We don't have anything
All
else
right,
to
and we
do.
postponed the election of officers last time. We had a short board, and
We don't announce Michael before we.
oh yes, I'm sorry.
Okay. Board, we would like to take this opportunity to welcome Mr. Benedict, Michael Benedict, to the board.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Sort of missed you last week. I kept looking for that person with that Michael name. But I'm glad to see that
Thank
you
you.
are made it.
What zone is Michael from?
Yes, still.
I am in, I live in Zone 1.
Zone 1, okay.
Okay. So, with that being said, we'll continue with the last item on our agenda, and that's the election of officers.
Maybe should we take up first, since we have someone that's volunteered while it's hot, that it doesn't get cold?
Well, that's the next thing, isn't it?
It's the next thing.
That's the next thing.
Okay.
It's already on here.
I want to get
You couldn't be much shorter. 2 items, 1 continued and 1 voted on.
Well, remember last time we put Mr. Hurt on, he wasn't here.
Yeah.
I was okay with it, but you saw my reason. But I would like to nominate Bob Hosmuth for chairman.
I second that. With commentary.
All right. It's been nominated and second. Mr. Hosford,
We got a vote on it.
we got a vote.
Yeah.
So all in favor of it?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
He
One
has some
down.
experience with that, doesn't he?
Yes.
Yes. Nomination for vice chair.
I nominate Ned Harper. You don't want it?
No.
Oh, okay. Kathy Washington?
Kathy, would you do that?
Sure.
All right.
I will second the willing.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Now, nomination for secretary.
You'd like that, wouldn't you, Pat?
I knew you were going to say a woman. No, I think I need a little more time on this board.
Well, it wasn't necessarily a woman, it was just someone that could read the writing.
You would do fine.
It's just real easy.
All
you do is just read the things off.
All right, hey, all right.
Okay.
And keep the chair on the straight and narrow.
Well, that's going to be the hard part.
Okay, I'll nominate Pat.
Okay.
So,
Second.
it's been motion and second that Mr. Drago be the secretary. Now, there comes the exciting part for the evening. The Main Street, South Atlantic, has someone as a representative.
You didn't want to vote on me because
We have called Pat.
Did I call on you? No. I'm sorry.
that's okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? I guess I was in a hurry. I didn't want you to back out either.
That's I was really thinking
Okay.
about it.
Main Street, South Atlantic. All in favor of Mr. Tim Davis?
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it.
You can have my book, I didn't even use it.
Or any other comments?
I don't know, do I give this back to you all and you all give that to him, or?
Yeah.
Sure. I don't know how to do it.
Yeah, probably has to be cleansed by the attorney before it goes to someone else, just in case.
Okay. Yes, that's the end of our agenda for today. So, consider the meeting adjourned. Good evening. We're going to call the February 27th meeting, 2014, to order. The Secretary, roll call, please.
Certainly. Mr. Hurt,
Here.
Mr. Moore,
Here.
Ms. Draga. Here. Ms. Washington, here. Mr. Hoitzma.
Here.
Mr. Davis.
Here.
Mr. Neal.
Here.
Mr. Barhu.
Here.
Mr. Benedict.
Here.
Mr. Harper.
Here.
Mr. Chair, you have a quorum.
Thank you very much. I see I have quite a few of the green forms already filled out. Are there any others out there that need to fill out a green form? Okay. Been asked to take item number 8 to the front of our meeting, and it's because it's been requested for a continuance. But if you are not going to be able to make the meeting in March, we ask that you make your statements. If you have an opportunity to do it this evening, you may do so. Otherwise, we will continue and request a movement of item number 8.
Motion to continue rezoning plan redevelopment, Screamers Park Development 2013-100
To March 27th.
till March 27th.
Yeah.
Second.
Before you guys vote on that, if we could have either Reed or the applicant come up and
Read or applicant.
Good evening, Parker Minchenberg, 1729 Ridgewood Avenue. I'm the design engineer on the project. We made a few changes to the plan after we went to the redevelopment board, and the staff needs another month basically to review what the changes were. So we'll be back with bells on in a month, and we accept the continuation they're requesting.
Thank you, sir.
Got it.
Now we'll go to number 3 on our,
good. Yeah, we have a motion and a second. Now we can go ahead.
gotta vote again.
We have a motion and a second. Like, all in favor?
Aye. All right, we have, the ayes have it.
And for the record, Tim Davis abstained, and there was a conflict form in your packets.
right.
We need to approve the minutes.
Minutes are next. Are there any corrections or addition to the minutes from January 23rd? If not, may I have a motion, please?
Make a motion that we accept the motion.
Second. Minutes.
I second the motion.
It's been motion and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any against? Secretary, item number 4, please.
Item number 4, rezoning, planned commercial development, Dunn Avenue, I-95, Distribution Center, DEV 2014-001, quasi-judicial hearing.
Can we hear from staff, please?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Dennis Morozak, planner with the City of Daytona Beach. The next item tonight is a request by Consolidated Tomoka Land Company to rezone 76.5 acres of land generally located east of Interstate 95 and north of Dunn Avenue from R2A multifamily to PCD planned commercial development, and to approve a preliminary plat in conjunction with the rezoning to construct a distribution center consisting of 809,795 total square feet of building development. Got some site locations for you up here on the board. You see the property runs just east of I-95 and north of the Dunn Avenue extension. I've got an aerial for you. One thing I wanted to point out on this aerial, as long as I have it up, the property does have 2 existing billboards. One is located over here in the center of the property. The other one is located over here at the south of the property. We'll get into that just a little bit later on. The future land use designation of the property is general industrial, with a portion of it is level 3 residential toward the south end. And the zoning of the property, the existing zoning again is the R2 to a multifamily, and the proposed is the PCD, which you see over there on the on the right-hand side. Okay, as far as the Dunn Avenue I-95 distribution center, the property site is approximately 76.5 acres. The proposed distribution use is compatible with the general industrial land use currently on the property. 809,000, as I was mentioning, square feet of total building area, most of it occurring in the first phase of development. The second phase would have approximately 178,000 building expansion. That would occur within 5 years according to the PD agreement. Access to the site will be via Dunn Avenue and Mason Avenue extension. In addition to this rezoning request, we do have a 2-lot preliminary plat that is being proposed, and this plat does include a billboard track, which again I'll discuss here in a second. I wanted to give you a kind of a general layout of the proposed plan. There's the vacant site right now. You see the void of any trees. It's adjacent to 95, again north of Dunn. Superimpose the plan on there to give you an idea of the scale of the size of the plan. Colored in the buildings, those are the buildings that are going to be included in the first phase of the development. The building expansion, the extra 178,000 square feet within the 5 years on the north lot. And down there in the corner, just off of 95 and north of Dunn, is the billboard track. That's the current location of the existing billboard, which is planned on remaining. The billboard toward the center of the property is actually being proposed to be removed. So the only billboard remaining on the property will be that one on the south side there. Also, let me back up here for a second. Not part of this actual development agreement, but part of the overall proposed development, we'll see an expansion of the Mason Avenue extension all the way to Dunn Avenue, and that's going to be located right over here in this area. I'm flashing that green for you so you can take a look at that. Okay, as far as any land development code waiver requests associated with the project, looking at design standards, the property does front I-95. I-95 is a major city thoroughfare. Land development code standards for design standards will not be met for the distribution center. The applicant has provided photos of an existing facility that they do have, and generally what you would expect in a large distribution center of this size, one that's actually existing for them. In addition to the design standards, they're also looking for landscape waivers. One of the things that they're looking to do is, in the parking facilities where the trucks and some of the cars are located, they've made a request to remove the trees and landscape material from that parking area. There's sometimes can be a conflict between the trucks and some of the trees actually when they do get mature. So the request was made to have them removed from those locations and adjacent to the buildings where it's not appropriate for a distribution center, and to move the material along the perimeters of the property to increase a larger buffer. They're going to be increasing additional material and additional size of the plant material also within these buffers to create a more prominent screen. One of the other LDC waiver requests is a chain link fencing. The property currently is zoned residential. It will be zoned to a PD, which is more of an industrial. Chain link fencing is appropriate for an industrial type land use. They are asking for an 8-foot chain link fence for the property. The design of the chain link fence, however, will be primarily behind the proposed landscaping. So where there will be chain link fencing, there will be landscaping in front of it facing the right-of-way. Another waiver request is platting. We had talked about the billboard that was going to be remaining down over there in that location, and we do have a copy of the plat for you in your package. Over here I've circled the billboard track. The reason for the waiver in this case is our code requires that all lots front streets and have access to it. This is a billboard lot designed for a billboard. Access is not really required, although they're going to have an easement access, an access point to be able to get to the site. So that would be one of their waiver requests. And finally, the other waiver request has to do with a billboard height. There's a current billboard, as I mentioned, on the south side of the property. The existing billboard exceeds the maximum height now permitted. The permitted height is 26 feet. The additional height in part of this waiver will bring the billboard into compliance. Just wanted to mention that the applicant has submitted a TIA for review. It's currently being reviewed by the city's consultant, and we will have results prior to an approval before the City Commission. So as for a recommendation, staff does recommend approval to rezone 76.5 acres of land, generally located east of Interstate 95 and north of Dunn Avenue, from R2A multifamily to PCD, planned commercial development, and to approve a preliminary plat in conjunction with the rezoning to construct a distribution center. Prior to the approval of the rezoning by the City Commission, the submitted traffic impact analysis and proposed development for the proposed development must be reviewed and accepted by the city. The item is tentatively scheduled to be heard by the City Commission for first reading on March 19th and for second reading on April 2nd, 2014, and that will be a public hearing. And as a reminder for the Planning Board, an affirmative vote of 6 or greater shall be required to recommend approval to the City Commission. And that does conclude my presentation.
Thank you, sir. Board, any questions for staff? Thank you, Mr. Massey.
Thank you.
The applicant, can we hear from the applicant? I took my time saying that, giving you time to get up here.
God bless you. For the record, my name is Rob Merrill. I'm an attorney with the Cobb Cole Law Firm. Our new location is at 149 South Ridgewood, about a half block south of here, at the newly remodeled Cobb Cole Center. That's for a while now. I think I get that free advertising opportunity. I'm here tonight representing Consolidated Tomoka, the landowner and the applicant. I want to thank Dennis, first of all, for doing such a thorough job. It makes my job a little easier, and I won't have to stand up quite so long. Mm-hmm. But I want to take a little different approach in the things I want to say to you tonight about this project. I don't even think Dennis smiled once throughout that presentation, and I'm thrilled to be here to bring this to you, and I hope that it jumps off the paper and you guys have smiles on your faces too, because what we're bringing here is something we've never seen before in this community. And in fact, I've spent my whole career trying to figure out why in the world we don't have a lot of these distribution centers. We're at the intersection of Interstate 4 and Interstate 95, and I don't understand why that hasn't attracted more. My hope is that this is going to be the beginning of something that's going to be great for us, but in and of itself, even without the catalyst effect that I'm predicting here, the ripple effect, it's phenomenal. 800,000 plus square feet of distribution facility, $88 million plus of capital investment in this project, and what it does to the tax base and 450 employees. I don't need to explain to you all what this means. We just don't get this. We haven't had this ever, and so it's phenomenal. And I hope that Dennis went over some of the details with you. I've got Parker Minchenberg, our engineer, and Jeff Robbins from Consolidated in the camera behind me here. If you want to ask them any questions, and I'm happy to try to answer any for you. But I'll emphasize, a couple of things that Dennis said to you tonight and that are in his report that he gave you. But it's so thorough, I don't have to say a whole lot. He mentioned to you the future land use classifications industrial on almost all of this property as it is now. So we're really tonight, from a standpoint of your agenda item, going through an exercise to bring your zoning map in compliance with your comprehensive plan anyway. Not that I even had to mention that with what this is bringing to you tonight, but that is the case. And as you saw in his report, Dennis did a very systematic and thorough job, like he always does, of talking about the criteria in your land development code and how this complies with it. So I'll rely on all the things that he said to you tonight and the things that he put in his report, and offer myself and the others here with me to answer any questions you might have.
All right. Any questions for the applicant? Go ahead, sir.
Yes, I don't think you're going to find anyone opposed to this.
Wasn't expecting that, Larry.
I did have a question, though. Where are the tractor trailers going to park on that? I didn't
Well,
see it on the plans.
All throughout the interior of the site is quite a bit of parking for tractor trailers. And Parker, if you wanted to explain how that happens, I think intuitively when you look at the plan, let me see what you've got in your package, Larry. Dennis, I don't know that they have an actual site plan that shows the parking layout. Which page is it?
I'm just curious. I don't,
There it is. Which page is that in the? Attachment A. So, in other words, thanks. You can see at this scale, it's hard to see, but you can see the much larger parking spaces, which is most of them. And then in the interior, you can see the smaller ones, which are the employee parking. But this is not a facility, by its nature, you understand that it's not a facility that the public is going to be coming in and out of. It's going to be the people that work there, and it's the larger spaces you see there, Larry, on that plan that's outlined in red.
One of the questions I had was in regards to the 8-foot chain link fence.
Thanks, Dennis.
And how would the landscaping affect or give us a look, pretty much.
Good question. And that was, and I meant to mention to you, and I usually do when I'm talking about the process that we go through with the city staff before we get to you, that we've spent a great deal of time with the TRT going through things just like that. And the result of the input that we got from your staff, Dennis is your landscape expert and others, was that the area where the tractor trailers are maneuvering that Larry just asked about internal to the site, it's better not from a safety standpoint, et cetera, to have the vegetation there. So we've moved it to the external parts of the site, in large part to screen that fence.
Okay.
And so that's the answer. I think what you're going to see is green.
Oh, absolutely. I'm looking at the appearance, especially from 95, past my 95 and actually Dunn Avenue also. So some of the appearance is a big thing.
Understood. And that's the reason for the external landscaping being beefed up.
Any other questions for the applicant?
I'm just going to add, the design standards, and I'm thinking about the view from 95, and I saw your picture of your building. So you're looking at breaking up the color of some of the masts. I'm thinking of the distribution centers that you see on I-10 or Lakeland. So you're going to be breaking up a little bit of that mass visually.
That's a good question also, Pat. What you don't have on I-10 or in Lakeland is the landscaping that we're bringing. So this is a low-rise building. It is an industrial building. It is not a, I can, the best example that I can give you of the type of buildings that have been constructed with those new standards are the 2 restaurants we did last year out at the mall, the Bahama Breeze and the Olive Garden. Beautiful, came out real nice, in large part because of those standards that you guys put in place a couple years ago. But there haven't been a whole lot of buildings built on those arterial roads that have complied to the T with those standards. And in this case, we're on 95, which I think is a little different type of arterial road. And we understand that because it's an industrial type building, that landscaping is going to be the priority. We can't make this a building that has all of the articulation and the roof line dimensions and such that go along with those standards. So I'm standing here telling you right now, it's just not doable. So we're going to do it with landscaping instead.
I wouldn't expect that. I just noticed that the photograph that you included, I mean, it's a flat concrete, tilt wall building. I was thinking you have at least 2 colors or whatever. But no, you're not going to do any of the
It's an industrial building, and that's, I can't hide that. That's what it is, and that's the good news, too.
Right.
There's going to be a lot of jobs in there, and there are going to be trucks coming in and out, and products, coming in and out through this community, which I think is huge.
I had one more question. This is in regards to the bicycle parking reduction waiver that you're asking for. So 50% reduction, is there a particular reason why it was?
Yeah, we normally, did you include my letter that outlines the rationale? Normally, Tony, and it's required by code that we give you a letter that gives you the rationale behind all those things. And the reason for the bicycle parking reduction is just what I said. We're not going to have the general public coming in and out of here. And, the bicycle, I think that the requirement, which is a good requirement, is intended to allow people who come there to have a place to park, more so than the employees. And I don't think we're going to have a lot of employees, although I think we have 24 parking spaces for bicycles. I think that's way overblown for the employees that will be coming here to park. So, and besides, I think with the tractor trailers, it's probably not a good mix anyway.
Thank you.
I have a question. Rob, you just said that it's just going to be a brick building, and we're looking at one color. When you put the shrubbery or the greenery along the fence, it's not going to be as tall as the building. So there, you mean to say that there's nothing attractive about the building? It's just a big block building?
I think it's phenomenal because of what's inside of it.
I like what's inside.
But it's designed to be a functional distribution facility, and as soon as we start architecturizing a distribution facility, it becomes less functional. So I'm just telling you right off the bat, it doesn't have the type of dimension that you look for in a retail building or a restaurant or an office building. It's not what it is. And I think if you were to try to impose that on a distribution facility, you'd kill it.
No, that wasn't what I was expecting. I don't know if anybody else was, but when you said, the way you explained it, I want to make sure I'm receiving it as you're saying it, because just a big block building going along with no...
I think Pat said that. I didn't say
I just want to be
If you
sure.
look at attachment C.
Yeah.
Okay.
The pictures show the picture.
It's a massive wall, but it's got a couple of breaks in color. That's all you need on that. I mean, we've built things like that,
Right, yeah, you have. Exactly. I'd like to see you guys abide by those standards. No, and Kathy, I'm not trying to give you the wrong impression. I just don't want you to think I'm giving you the impression that it has the type of breaks that these smaller buildings can have. It's a big building.
Right.
And it would look crazy if you did that to it. Not only would it not make sense economically or from a functional standpoint, it would look silly. So the color changes, yes, but the building from a design and a construction standpoint is what you see in those pictures. That's what you got. But the good news is, although, with landscaping, we typically get into this, well, what's it going to look like when it's planted? Well, you get that, but depending on what you plant, 2 or 3 years later, it can be a completely different story. Exactly. And that's what you get into here. We all know that we're in Florida, and you plant a viburnum or certain types of bushes. Next thing you know, you can't see anything.
Right.
So that's our intent here, is to use the green to give us a buffer.
circumstances.
No palm trees, Bob.
Yeah, that's better.
Not pondering. What
That
I'm
was
really-
better.
What I'm really thinking is that what's out there now is not exactly attractive.
All right.
And so I really think this is an improvement, frankly.
Yeah, it's going to be heavily planted, as you know. There's not a lot of preservation.
Does that mean right now it doesn't have the right kind of palm trees?
No, it doesn't at all.
No, most of what you get on 95 in this area is pine trees, and we know what those are worth.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
It's a pleasure to see something of this magnitude coming into Daytona Beach for a first time.
I'll wait for the vote, but I'll report back that you're excited about it.
Thank you. Board? Well, excuse me.
What, I'd like to hear what Parker has.
I had something, another speaker. Go ahead, Park.
Again, for the record, Parker Minchenberg, 1729 Ridgewood Avenue. I think there's been some discussion about the aesthetics of this building, and with a distribution center such as this, it's got good height to it. So what we endeavored to do from 95, I've got a berm between 95 and where the parking area is. We've got a 50-foot scenic setback, so it's going to be 2 to 3 feet higher than the vehicles, so that gives you 2 or 3 feet already. And the top of that berm is about 5 feet higher than the travel lane in 95, so you're going to be looking up at the landscaping. Then, as Dennis had mentioned, we kind of took the trees that we normally would have put every 10 parking places, landscape end rows, and we moved them to the outside. And then I predominantly am planting oak trees, about 500 of them. And they're 3-inch caliper instead of the 2.5-inch that are normally required. And then space between them are understory trees, crepe myrtle, hollies. Then we have ground cover, kind of similar to what you see at the Cornerstone office, not exactly. We had a lot of magnolias there. So that's an effort to screen the chain link fence, which is a requirement because they do some food prep there. So it's not just because of the distribution center. They have to have security, so there's kind of checkpoints, people coming and going. The general public just can't come in there because of the food situation. So the perimeter is very heavily landscaped. Along 95, it's bermed and heavily landscaped to help offset the aesthetics of the distribution center.
Thank you, sir.
You got it.
Mr. Cameron.
Thank you, Mr. Neal. I'm Jim Cameron, Senior Vice President, Government Relations, Daytona Regional Chamber. And Daytona Regional Chamber would welcome this type distribution facility locating in Daytona Beach. I've been here for 30 years, and I've heard talk all this time, though, that people said, like Rob pointed out, we're at the intersection. We've got I-4 and I-95 meeting right here. We're in a great strategic location. And in this type facility, somebody's figured it out. I mean, somebody's discovered that. So that's one thing we like. But Volusia Department of Economic Development reports in the last 6 months or so is that our employment is picking up here in Volusia County. And I think the last quarterly report, they said that we have about 6.3% unemployment and all. But I think you're going to find, I've always learned that most economists say that 4% unemployment, more so is the norm. We think that this is going to help bring Volusia down to 4% or below. And not only that, though, we think it's going to hopefully spur more business with our existing companies and maybe a few satellite companies on top of that. So the bottom line is jobs. It's a good fit for Daytona Beach, and it's a good fit for Volusia County. We support it.
Thank you, sir. Anyone in the public wish to speak against? Board, for discussion, please.
Make a motion that we approve rezoning plan commercial development, Dunn Avenue, I-95 Distribution Center, DEB 2014-001.
Second. It's been motion and second All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you.